Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Taanit daf Yud Gimel, we are going to begin on Yud Gimel with Aleph, 4 lines from the top. Amar Rav from Bar Papa, Amar Rav Chisda. He says as follows: Kol shehu mishum avel. Anytime a person is fasting because of a form of mourning, can go in Tisha B'Av, as well as Avel, a person who is a mourner. Aser bein b'cham and bein b'sainin. That individual is not allowed to use hot water or even cold water. So Rashi says, Kol tainus she'asu chachamim rechitza mishum avel kagon Tisha B'Av shehu mishum avelus churban, mourning over the destruction of the temple. The kol shekain avel mamish shemeisel afanav deisli tsaratuv, there's tremendous pain. Aser bein b'cham and bein b'sainin. Back in the Gemara. Koshimishum tainig, if the whole reason why there is a fast is because of restriction of pleasure, says Rashi, Shemitzarin v'asurin atzmim b'tainig. So in that, Kegoyin Tainus Sibor, the fast that is implemented by the Tzibor, but not including Tisha B'Av, b'chamin also b'tzainin mutter. So we see this chumrah when it comes to an avelus, that you're usher even b'tzayning. Amarav idi b'rabin afanam nami tanina. We also have support to this from our Mishnah. It says that they would close up the merchatzois. Now the question is, what is that coming to tell us? It must be that a bathhouse, you're not going in to become ice cold and freeze. You go into a merchatzois because it's warm, which means the whole prohibition is dafka b'chamin, is only with hot water, which is mashma, therefore, that sainin is mutter. Amoyabaya v'ibet sainin aser, it was true that even cold water would be aser, seichenes hanaris miboili misni. It should say we close up like the rivers. Basically, it should say that you can't do anything. The fact that it says don't go into those warm, very comfortable bathhouses must be coming to tell you that's the only thing that's aser. Some Rav Sheshi B'Rei Rav Idi Abba Hakikashale Michdi Tanan Asbar Chitza. So I have a question. It says that you're not allowed to go and bathe, which obviously that means with water. It seems to be redundant, the Mishnah saying that you can't go into a bathhouse. So he uses this raya that it must be that's coming to explain the Isra Achitza is Dafka B'chamen. Let's bring some further support to what we established. Kol Chavi Tfilois, any individual who is Mechuyev to be Toivel, says Rashi, for example, Nida, V'yoyledas, woman who gave birth, Toivlin Kedarkan, so the din is, they can be Toivel in the normal manner, says the Gemara, Toivlin Kedarkan. Bein b'Tisha B'Av, bein Yom Kippurim. Doesn't make any difference when, because they have a chiyuv to go into the mikvah, so therefore they can do so in the normal way. It doesn't matter even if it's on Tisha B'Av, even Yom Kippur. To b'mai. So what exactly is this coming to tell you? Ilema b'chamin. Is it saying going into a nice hot warm mikveh? Tefillah b'chamin v'yika. Shvuininhu. These are drawn water. Now, of course, this is different than our modern day mikveh. But if we're talking about water in which is rainwater, it's going to be cold. Maim shuavin, drawn water that you heated up, let's say on a kettle, and you dumped it into a bathtub. That's maim shuavin. That obviously doesn't work. Says Rashi, chamia or hashuavininhu. You can't heat it up that way because it's maim shuavin. So obviously it must be coming to tell you al b'tzayin. It's telling you that we allow these women to be toivel in cold water. in the shachrina lo. It's mashma, only these women, but not everyone else is allowed to go into cold water. And again, this is referring to on Tisha B'Av. Then on Tisha B'Av we aser even b'tzayin. Amar Rav Chana bar Katina lo nitzracha el lachamit tveria. Says no, it's not necessarily a raya. Maybe we are talking about being toivel properly, and it's chami tveria, says Rashi. V'hilka chami tvilos in kuliyalma lo. Sharu. The whole issue is going into Chamitveria, which is hot water. So that's what's not allowed by other people. However, everyone else could go in, but Sainin maybe. It's not a raya that on Tisha B'Av there's an Isser, even with Sainin. So if it's talking about Chamitveria, Eim Aseifa, Amrav Chanina Sagana Kohanim, Kedaihu Beis Elokeinu Lo'abed Olav Tvila Pamachas B'Shana. It's worth it because of the Chorban Beis HaMikdash. Since the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, so it's kedai to forgo going into the mikvah one time in the year, which is referring to on Tisha B'Av. Now, v'yamar b'tzainin muter yichatz b'tzainin. If we were saying this, it's clear that you're not even allowed to go in cold water, because otherwise, why is he saying give up the opportunity of going to the mikvah one day of the year, zechol chorban? So actually, maybe it's not Talmud Chamitveria. Maybe again it's a raya that when it comes to Tisha B'Av, the din is that it's Isser even b'tzainin. So Amar Papa bi'atra delo shchiach tzainin. It's actually just talking about a situation, a city where there's no cold water. So therefore, says Rashi, well, Olam b'Chamitveria. We're talking about Chamitveria. It would Sainain Kuliyamishari. Cold water is allowed for everyone to go into. Umayla Abed doesn't mean he's going to lose out. What do you mean you're going to lose out? Right? You can go into the cold water if you can't, because cold water is mutter. Yeah, but there's no cold water around. If there was, then that would be a great opportunity. But because you are allowed, maybe you are allowed on Tisha B'Av. So the din is, yeah, you may be allowed, but practically you can't get to it. Tashma. When we said that there's an Isser Malach, and Rashi says Gabi Taanit Sibor. So when we said that statement, Lo Amr El B'Yoim, the Isser of doing Malach is only during the day. Abu B'Layla Mutter. When it comes to a Taanit Sibor, a person is allowed to work. When it says you're not allowed to wear leather shoes on a Taanit Sibor, Lo Amr El B'Ir. That's only referring to actually when you get to your city. Let's say you're already on the road, you're past the city, and therefore the road is a treacherous, uncomfortable, bumpy road. So there, you're allowed to. If you go on the road, noil, you can put on your shoes. And when we said regarding the Taanit Sibor, which we've established so far to say that when it comes to a Taanit Sibor, it's Aser only berachitza b'chamin, but sainin cold as mutter. Lo omer el kol gufay. So here he says another word that the whole Isser is dafka your whole body. You could on a Taanit Sibor wash your face, hands, and feet. So too when it comes to someone who is menuda, which is someone who has been excommunicated, as well as someone who's an avail, it's the same din. So my love, akulhu, it's talking about all of them, that the same dinim apply. Are we talking about hot water? Is it possible to say you're allowed to wash your face in hot water and your feet, arms? So actually we see that an avel, because it says v'chein ba'avel, it must be that an avel is allowed to go immerse in cold water. The Gemara says, really, it's talking about hot water. That's what we're referring to. And therefore, when it comes to this avel, we're not going to matter. It's only comparing the avel to the other dinim of wearing shoes and doing malacha. However, there is a distinction when it comes to the avel menuda that we're more strict when it comes to rechitza, that a person is not allowed to wash panav yodav v'raglav. So therefore, why? It's because he's not allowed to at all. Not in hot water. Nothing. Because as we said, he came and washes etzba katana. But when we say panav yodav v'raglav, it's mutter b'rachitza by a Taanit Sibor. that's referring to, again, chamin and panav baraglav, but if it's b'tzainin, cold, that would be allowed. Fine. Asharakoi. Tashma. Diyam Rav Abba Hakayin, Misham Rav Yosi Hakayin. Master story. Umeisu Bonov Shel Rav Yosi ben Rebbe Chanina. So, tragically, 2 of his sons died. V'rachatz b'tzainin kol shiva, which is very hard to understand. We said that an avel is not allowed to do rechitza, but even b'tzainin in cold water. Yet for some reason we allowed this person to do so. And the answer is that's not because normally it's an avel's mutter b'tzainin. Normally an avel's also b'tzainin. However, hasam over there kishitakafuhu avolov havi. This is when tragically they died one after the other, literally back to back. Says Rashi b'zachar zeh. And that's the reason why we're makel, because of this longer avelus period, which were back-to-back avelus, that we allowed this avel to immerse in cold water. But normally an avel is aser b'tzaining. Desanya, tachfuhu avolav zed zeh, zechar zeh, if again, a person's an avel one after the other, so hichbid saro mekel batar. If his hair is heavy, he can lighten it with a razor. Notice he could lightly cut some of his hair. And we also allow him to wash his clothes. So we give him more leniencies because of his, not only his distraught matter, but the fact that it's an elongated period of time. But tar, we will allow him to deal with his hair with a razor of a lobe misparayim, but not with scissors. Fine. That's the only allowing. Also, when we launder, you can't do the regular laundry using all the cleanly materials, like the laundry detergent and the like. You can just use water, but you can't use the other cleaning agents. Amarava, Avel mutar echatz b'tzainin kol shiva. So this is actually now a different interpretation of what we said before. This opinion says that an avel is mutter, is allowed to wash b'tzainin. How could we say that? All 7 days, because midahavi abis v'chamra. It's the same din when it comes to meat and wine. What is that? The tainig hein kitzainin. The whole prohibition of them eating meat and wine is dafka because it's tainig. It falls in the category of something which is enjoyable and pleasurable. And therefore, we allow this person to immerse himself in cold water. Again, because chamin is tainig. If you're immersing yourself in cold water, it's not enjoyable. It's freezing cold. So therefore, it's mutter because mideh havi bisr b'chamra, that basar and chamra is tainug. Mashma anything else not. Okay, but therefore again, seinin is mutter, which is a tremendous chiddush. Meisvei for the Gemara as we continue to Yud Gimel and Beis. Ein haboigeres risha lenavlas atzma b'mei evel aviha. Now, a girl who is a bogeres has already reached the age of 12 and a half. So she is not allowed to be make herself look repulsive, even though it's during the time that she's sitting avelus for her father. Let's look in Rashi. Rather, ela miskashetes kidei shikvetsu aleha. We allow her to adorn herself and look beautiful so that she will potentially have people who are interested in dating her and marrying her because of her physical appearance. If she looks munuvelet, also the fact that her father died is probably not helpful either, certainly back then, to be able to find the shidduch. So we do not allow her to do anything which makes her not look nice. Now, the diak is it's only a bogeres, mashmaha nairo rishah. When it comes to a girl who is only between the ages of 12 and 12 and a half, we do allow her to be menavel, to make herself look not so nice. So we don't require or tell her that she should put on makeup and the like. Says Rashi, B'yemei Eva Aviha. Afil Era Velos LaAviha Shemes Benai, Inami Shemes Aviha Mamish, Alpha Bishi Bas Chiv Avelos in Roshel Navel. However, as we said, a naira is allowed to. Now, my love, Barachitza. L'chayr is referring to manuvel, making yourself manuvel by not bathing. Uvamai ilema b'chamin ein habogeres rasha. It says that a woman who is a bogeres is not allowed to refrain from bathing, which is mashma she must bathe in chamin and hot water. Certainly, we're not going to make that kula, because a woman who is in a veilus is not allowed to bathe in hot water. Elwa b'tzainin. So what do we see? That we matter this bogeres to go into the water, into tzainin, which is a problem because we're only allowing the bogeres. The naira who's in a veilus is not allowed to even immerse b'tzainin. So how can you tell me that every person who's in mourning is mutter b'tzainin in cold water? We see that the heter is dafka by the bogeres. So lo achichol pirchos. Actually, what it's, as we said, it's not referring to the bathing, has nothing to do with that. Rather, it has to do with putting on different forms of makeup. It has nothing to do with mechitza at all. And that's what it's referring to. So it's not a question. So Leim Nasaili, the Amarav Abba Hakayin, Mishum Rabbi Yossi Hakayin Masos, the Star Mesa Banam Shal Rabbi Yossi, Barachanina Barachat Putzayin Nikol Shiva. So we see that it must be mutter because he immersed himself in cold water. So yeah, but that's only in that certain circumstance that we maybe were lenient. Ari Hassam, as we said over there, is Bishetachvuhu Avolov, Zachar Zeh, where we had people, his relatives died one after the other. The Sanya, Tachvuhu Avolov Zachar Zeh, Sa'aro Mekel Batar, you can lighten your hair with a razor, Machabitz Kavus, Aksusa B'mayim, and you can clean your clothes with water, or Chista Batar, V'lo B'misparayim, not with scissors, B'mayim, V'lo B'neser, V'lo B'choil, V'lo B'ahol, not an all, which just throws that extra one in there, which is interesting why it's exactly verbatim and includes V'lo B'ahol. Not that the other one is not including that, but for whatever reason, it doesn't mention it. Okay. Ikidi Amri, some say Yom Rava Avil Aser B'tzayin in Kol Shiva. Actually, he said that an Avil is not allowed to even go in cold water. So Ma'ishno Mebasav Yayin. So why is it different from Basav Yayin, between meat and wine? Hasam Lafuchi Pachte Huda Avid. The whole reason why he was doing it is to remove worries and his stress. That is the whole reason why he does that. A naira is allowed to make herself manuvel. But it can't be that we're going to allow this bogeres to go into hot water. In a bogeres rasha to refrain from hot water, she has to refrain from going into hot water. After all, we say only bogeres is allowed to go in cold water, but not a naira, not anyone else. So again, we see beferish this din. Lo achichol pirchos. Fine. Again, it has nothing to do with rechitza. Omer chista zosameres. What's the zosameres? Rashi helps us over here. The fact that we end up talking about it's talking about this makeup. Hu hadin letich boises. So too when it comes to laundering. It must be zosameres avul aser betich boses kol shiva, because it's talking about being cleanly, being presentable. So it must be the only heter would only be for bogeres. However, any other person who's in a veilus is not allowed to launder their clothes. The hilchasa. So what is the halacha at the end of the day? The halacha is that an avel is aser lichatz kol gufay, bein b'cham and bein mitzayin kol shiva. He's not allowed to immerse himself, his entire body. It doesn't make a difference if it's hot or cold water. Of a panav yadav v'raglov, when it comes to just your face, your hands and your feet, b'chamin aser b'tzayin mutter, that will at least allow. So we do not allow an avil to do anything except panav yadav v'raglov b'tzayin in cold water. Avul asuch, but to anoint himself, I feel kol shehu, even the smallest amount aser. Avares azuhama mutter. if the reason is to be able to get rid of some type of putrid odor of sorts, so he's not doing it because of Taanit, and therefore it's allowed. Okay, let's see a couple of questions. Question 5. B'ma chomer israchitza ba'avel mimetainas sibor. How are we more strict when it comes to someone who's an avelus than Taanit sibor? 2 answers. First of all, an avel's aser af b'tzainin, which is what we said lahalacha, is aser b'tzainin kol gufo. Mash'ein kim b'Taanit sibor. Avel's aser af panav yadav v'ragla mash'ein b'Taanit sibor. Again, the only iser panav yadav v'ragla is b'chamen. However, when it comes to b'tzainin, we did say l'maskana that is mukha. Question 6. Rav Chisa, Zois Amaris. Mehechin lomad Zois dikarma Zois Amaris. So he says like this. This is what Rashi said. Midik me'inon braisa di asar kichol pirchus. Since we asked the naira, only a Bulgaris is allowed, but no one else, to be able to care for her hair and to do all these different things for her makeup, so too there'll be a stringency and an isser of rechitza, of kivus, of laundering as well. Okay, let's continue with the next piece. Salusa de tanisa hechi madkarinan. So the davening of a fast, where exactly hechi? How is it mentioned? Let's see. This is a totally new piece. So, Dabir Rabbi Yehudel Rabbi Yitzchak Berei V'Darish Yachid Shekibel of Tainus. If you have an individual that accepts upon himself to fast, Mispal Shel Tainus, then he should be Mispalel the Tefillah of Anenu. Rashi says the Heichin Amra. So where should it be said? Ben Goel L'Roife. So again, if you accept upon yourself a fast, you should add Anenu being Goyla Rofe, which is and Rashi says is a bracha b'fnei atzma. Okay, that's again l'maskana. We say Anenu, but we do not say it as a bracha b'fnei atzma. Okay, so let's continue. Heichan Amar ben Goyla Rofe. How would we allow an individual to establish his own bracha? Actually, it's inserted instead in Shemei Tefillah. Now, before I get to the Meisvei, I want to focus on one piece of the Rabbeinu Chananel, which I may not have explained properly or clearly when it comes to Basar V'Yayin. The Rabbeinu Chananel says, Basar V'Yayin Sharinan Le, Kinei Lafuchi Pachte. When the Gemara said, Hasam Lafuchi Pachte, the reason why we matir wine and meat is if it's a way to be able to remove the worries from that individual. When it comes to rechitza, which is taining, that's not matir. But when it comes to basar and yayin, actually they say it may not be tainug, but rather it's a form of removing your stress and anxiety. Okay. Now again, the question is, a yachid, when he says anenu, is it in Shemei Tefillah or is it being goyla raife? Meisvei. Ein ben yachid letzibor. There's no difference when it comes to the fasts between an individual and a tzibor. El shezem espal shmona esrei v'zem espal teisha esrei. One does 18, one does 19. My yachid, my tzibor. Which means there must be someone is saying an extra bracha. Ilay me yachid mamash v'tzibor shlech tzibor. Is it talking about the individual says the Shemona Esrei, and then the Chazan repeats, Hani Teisha Esrei, Esrim Yarba Habi. When it comes to a public fast day, we're going to see in the upcoming parak that there's actually 24 brachos. In addition to the Shemona Esrei, there's 6 extra special brachos said during these days. El Lav HaKamer, Ein Ben Yachid Dekibul of Tainus Yachid, Yachid Shekibul of Tainus Sibor. You're in both your Yachid. But did you accept upon yourself, I'm going to fast like a Tainus Yachid, or I'm going to take upon myself the additional laws of a Tainus Sibor? El shezem espal shmona esrei, zem espal tisha esrei. So shmamina Yachid kaver bracha atzma. We see that if a Yachid accepts upon himself to fast just like a the Taanit Sibor, that the din is that he must fast and say the extra bracha of Anenu, which would be between Rofei and between Goyal and Rofei. So we're talking about the Shliat Sibor. What do you mean? It should be 24 brachos. But the Kakashalach Shliat Sibor Esen V'Arba Matzli Begimel Tanis Rishonos. The Lake Esen V'Arba. There's not 24. We only do that by the later fasts. When it gets really bad, there's no rain, and we continue to fast. But the beginning fasts, we just do the regular. All the Shliat Sibor will do is say a bracha b'fnei atzma, but the yachid never does. Below, you're telling me that we don't say the 24. Well, ein bein katani. It says there's no difference. Ein bein gimel rishonos l'gimel amsiyas. There's no difference between the first fasts and the middle ones. El shebe'elu mutar b'asiyas malacha ve'elu asur b'asiyas malacha. The whole difference is whether you're allowed to work. Hachav dal zevas hashav. It must be that the first brachos, the first fasts, you said 24 brachos there too. Where it says no, Taanit B'Shir. The reality is the Taanit mentions certain things, like the chiluk between asiyas malacha. However, it leaves certain things out. It doesn't talk about how many brachos are said. So, my shir to high shire. The Gemara always asks that question. The Gemara is, they're not just going to leave one thing out. If you're going to leave something out, it must be because there's other things that you're leaving out. Otherwise, if it's just one more thing, you can just add that one more thing. So it must be there's something else. But if there is nothing else, so then that is a problem. Now, obviously, that would be a raya that it must be it's not true. That we do not say there is no difference when it comes to 24 brachos. You say in the first. The Su. Vaha in ben katani elatana b'yisuri. So Taanit B'Shir, so my shed high shire v'su ha ein bein katani, which is mashma. You can't say Taanit B'Shir on an ein bein. Ein bein means there's no difference. Okay, el tana b'yisuri kamairi b'tfilos lo kamairi. No, the truth is, it is true that there is no difference when it comes to isurim. So the whole difference in isurim is isur malacha, or being mutar b'malacha. But there are differences. The other difference, for example, tefillah, but he doesn't want to talk about because he's not thinking along those lines of making that distinction. However, it is true. The first set of fasts, we do not say the 24. Maybe the reason why there's no difference is, when it comes to brachos, is not only we don't say 24 in the beginning, we don't say 24 in the middle ones either. But again, that doesn't necessarily answer our question, because there could be, we're talking about the yachid is not able to say bracha b'fnei atzma. Yes, we say we blow shofar and we close up the stores. And everything else, it's the same. Must be the middle and the last ones. They do say this 24 brachos. Vaha ein ben katani, v'tizbra ein ben davka. You want to tell me it's specific when it says ein ben, as we continue your dalam and aleph. V'ashayir teva. There are other things that are left out. When it comes to the last fasts, they actually will take the teva from the shul and they'll bring it into the middle of the street, which again is another very surprising activity to do, and therefore that will instill hopefully more emotion for a person to do tshuva, etc. So there are other differences, like teva. So yeah, so there's an interesting, but the teva is only about the last one. Maybe the bracha is only the last one. No, imishum teva lav shirahu. That one doesn't count. Because mili de tzina katani, mili de farhesilo katani. It only wants to mention things that are done privately, not things that are out in the open. So b'far hesia, yeah, the teva it doesn't mention. It's a davar pashut because it's b'far hesia. Everyone knows this distinction. But the things that are b'sinna he mentions. So therefore he should have also he would have mentioned the difference between 24. Must be there is not a difference. So it's not true. The middle one actually do say 24. So Ravashi mastisa nami deka. And our Mishnah, in fact, will support this. Tiktani ma elu yiseris al rishonos el sheba elu ma'asrin v'noel nesachendius. That this is what they do by the last ones. They blow shofar, they close the stores. Of a b'chol divrehim zevazeh shavan. The fact that it says everything else is equal, it must be really maybe that they do, as Rashi says, the chaf dalad zevazeh shavan, that they do say 24 in the middle. It says these. But tizra ma'elu davka hu v'hashayir teva, as we said. Because it's going to be something that's going to be learned in the next parak. So that's, it doesn't need to mention things that are not even mentioned here. So maybe the reason why it doesn't mention is because that's something which will be introduced only in another parak, and therefore he doesn't want to mention it here because it's like, what is that talking about? Right? Tana Hechakoi, like where is this come? I've never heard of this before. So the fact that it doesn't mention the 24, or the fact that it doesn't as a chiluk, or the fact that it doesn't mention the teva as a chiluk, doesn't mean that they're not differences, and therefore it's possible that in fact the middle ones you did not say 24 brachos. So my havila. So what is the maskana of all this? So on this, Omer Rav Shmuel bar Sasrtoi v'chein Omer Rav Chia bar Ashi Omer Rav ben go raife. The din is that the yochid should say it ben go raife. Rav Ashi Omer mishmei de Rav Yanai b'rei de Rabbi Shmuel b'shomei tefillah v'hilchasa b'shomei tefillah. So the halacha is that we say a nenu in shomei tefillah. That's the yochid who is makabel the tefillah upon himself. Okay. We'll stop here. Let's see a couple more questions. Okay, we did that. Let's see T. Let's start off. Let's do TA first. TA1. Ein haboy geres. This is on Yid Gimel Beis. Ha naira risha. A bogeres is not to be menuvelet, but a naira is allowed to. The baschi b'veilsi because she's fasting. She's mourning. Well, inyan ma nemer hachiluk. Bein bogeres lanaira, beis okumtus b'gemara. So he says either it's referring to rechitza, and the distinction is by tzayin, and therefore we allow a bogeres to immerse in b'tzayin, which is a raya that anyone else is also b'tzayin, or no, it's just talking about kichol pirchos, about adorning themselves and looking nicely in that manner. TB2. Who are we lenient that we allow them to wash their clothes even though they are in a state of avelos? So we mentioned this great Rav that his children died right after each other, which is tachvuhu avelov. So if they died zach or zeh right after each other, so we're lenient. And also by bogeres, we also are lenient when it comes to her, that we will allow her, so she does not look menuvel, that we allow her also to engage in laundering her clothes, even though she is in the state of avelos. Adka.